Overtired. So tired. Overtired.
Welcome back, Overtired listeners. It has been a minute.
I'm Sam Sanders.
We have been on a little bit of a break, but I am Brett Terpstra. I am here with Jeff Severins Gunsel and Christina Warren. How you guys doing? How you holding up?
Hello.
I wish I was Sam Sanders, and I wish he was still hosting It's Been a Minute, because he's phenomenal. It's still a great show. Sorry, I'm good. Hi, Christina. Hi.
Hi, I've missed you guys.
Yeah.
Two.
How long has it been? We took a couple weeks off. I think 2, maybe 3. We had there was a lot of travel, a lot of end of summer stuff going on.
Yep, still
and
end of summer stuff going on.
And we have 0 sponsors for the foreseeable future. So if we need a week off, we're taking a week off. And
yeah. Does anybody have like an AA sponsor they could bring on?
Yeah. Or hey, but genuinely, if you have a product service app that you would like to get out to an audience of nerds and whatnot, hit us up and sponsor. Pod.
For sure. It's kind of nice not being beholden to anybody.
Oh, totally. I'm just saying.
But yeah, I mean, and I know from experience that people will forgive this show for disappearing for like up to a year at a time. And they stick around. They keep coming back. We had a couple years of very sporadic podcasts. And when we started back up, our downloads were about the same as they were when we left off. To be fair, in the past, when we were on 5x5, our show got 30,000 downloads a week, which is very respectable.
Yes.
These days, I'm not going to throw out numbers, but it is far less than that.
I'm not going to throw out numbers.
It is a fraction.
It's a very select group of people that we allow to listen to this podcast.
But we have very loyal listeners who know us, and if they met us on the street, they would all be very kind.
I love you, Danny Glamour.
We all love Danny Glamour. So anyway, we should kick off a mental health corner, find out where everybody's at. Jeff, how you doing?
I am doing pretty good. I am doing pretty good. I'm doing good. I said that 6 times now, which probably means I'm not doing good. No, I think I'm in the midst of preparing for a pretty wackadoodle yard sale of tools. That is the tools I will be selling cover a bizarre range of things from the industrial to the eccentric, and much of what's there is the result of what I now understand was a manic episode 2.5 years ago, a month long. I've never had anything like it. I'm diagnosed with bipolar, but I can't type. Yeah, whatever the one where people go, oh, bummer. And I now understand what manic episodes have looked like in my life, and they never looked like this. And I was obsessed with this idea that I was burned out in my work, and I loved working in my workshop. I have a kind of extensive workshop. I like doing metal work. I like doing random commissions. I like fixing old things. And I decided I'm going to figure out how to make a life out of this, and it's going to be funded by flipping old tools that I restore using my great judgment, which of course, when you're manic, your judgment is incredible. And so I started bidding in auctions for about a month, closed, like steel factories that were closing down. And this old man in Spooner, Wisconsin had died, Charlie. And they were like auctioning off his entire shop. And I bought a bunch of like valuable vintage tools for nothing and bought way too much of them and almost destroyed my van trying to drive it home. And so anyway, I thought it was the best month of my life until I realized it was probably the worst. And I brought home so much stuff in that month and spent so much money. And it really kind of brought my whole life to a grinding halt, I guess. as I sort of lost that energy and realized what had happened, and it was difficult in my home and my relationship, it was difficult for me because the workshop I loved that I was already struggling to keep clean now was basically you couldn't navigate it. And because that led to my diagnosis, and that led to a long period of trying to find the right medications, which led to gaining a bunch of weight, which led to getting diabetes, which led to getting diabetes meds that caused me to lose a bunch of weight. Like, not to mention, the way different drugs impact you and how long it takes you to realize it, and then how painful it is when you stop. And, it was a 2-year process that ended not that long ago, maybe like 6 months ago. And I feel great now, and I feel really even, and that's just wonderful. But I had to let all that stuff just stay in this terrible condition. I essentially made it a time capsule. And recently, through just a lot of hard work and therapy, I was able to kind of face it. Because like one of the things that I learned about having a really destructive manic episode is like, it's really painful to feel like you can't trust yourself. Because I've always felt like I can trust myself, trust my gut. And I have, I think, been able to do that, and it's served me well. But my judgment in that period was so fucking off. And it was exaggerated parts of real me, right? Like, sure. It wasn't like, I'm not me. It was like, no, I'm definitely me. And all of the dials, and I'm not going to see up to 11. It's overused in our culture.
Sure.
But all the dials are just, all Jeff, the faders are up.
And then some. Yeah.
Yeah. I was fucking Jeff. Right. Like, and so anyway, it's this beautiful thing, because I finally realized, okay, I think I can go in. I think I can sort through this stuff. I think I can make sort of a really fun sale. And the concept of the sale is I'm liquidating my Uncle Ray's workshop and collection. My Uncle Ray was a little bit of a hoarder. He passed recently. He was an eccentric. He's a wonderful guy. And I really love him. And he asked me in his last dying wish was just make sure my stuff goes to a good home. And if it can't, take it to the dump. And I created that idea, which I may not even go with, because I loved the possibility. Let me tell you, when I have this sale, it's going to draw in some weirdos. And so I didn't want to have to argue with people about whether something works or the value of something. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be like, look, man, I can't tell you if that thing's working. It was Uncle Ray's. I can't tell him. I wouldn't lie. I wouldn't say something works when it doesn't. I literally sometimes don't know if it works, right? Like the cable's cut or something, but it's like a really valuable thing with a cable cut, whatever. Maybe. So the leftover manic part of me still thinks probably.
So how are you advertising this?
Well, I only decided today I'm finally going to do it next week. My wife was like, here's the deal. Have the sale you can have. Because I was like, there's going to be a popcorn machine. There's going to be, you know what I mean? Like, there's.
You're like, this is going to be a sale. This is going to be like a good old fashioned like rummage sale.
We're going to have balloons, and Laurel at one point it was like, I see you. I love this Uncle Ray thing. I think it's great. I think it's a great way to kind of have fun, and probably part of healing from this thing and having a little distance from it. So you don't have to answer the question of why do you have all this stuff, dude? Right. But she's like, I see you possibly spending too much time on the backstory of Uncle Ray. And I was like, fair enough. And then the other thing she said that was so helpful was exactly that. Like, just have the sale you can have it next weekend. So until the moment we started recording or met up here, I've been prepping for this yard sale, which is about so much more than selling tools. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's mental yard sale as mental health corner. I like.
Yeah, we'll see. I do not like having garage sales. I look at people that come and look at my shit, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing looking at my shit? Even though I put it out there, it's
you
like,
don't deserve this.
You don't deserve this. Yeah, you don't know what to do with this. So we'll see if I can pull it off. That's why it's good that it's Uncle Ray. I'm thinking of having a picture of Uncle Ray with like a born and death date. And then the last bit is anybody who says, are you Uncle Ray? They get a 20% discount. If they figure it out, they get a discount. So I'm not trying to just straight up lie to people. That's my story. That's my check-in.
I went to a garage sale once when I was maybe 16, and there was an Oscar, like the computer, the like briefcase computer, the Oscar.
Oh, cool.
And they were real cagey when you first started asking questions about it, because clearly they wanted it to go to a good home. I believe the magic words were when I asked, is that a 300 baud modem? And they were like, okay, this guy might want this. Maybe it wasn't even the Oscar. Maybe like I bought an Oscar and I bought an AT&T Unix machine, one of their first portable AT&T machines, and that was the one that had a 300 baud coupler modem that like came out the side, and you put the phone receiver into it.
Oh my God.
And then it was like a 300 baud connection to your Gopher servers or whatever.
Right.
I learned Unix on that AT&T machine. That is where I learned most of my Unix skills. But anyway, I feel like the idea that people who have garage sales really do want their shit to go to people who will cherish it. Oh, nice.
TRS 80, the Trash 80.
Trash 80.
I just pulled out my mint condition Trash 80, which I'll talk about after this. I just want to say a little bit about vintage computing when we're done with our check-ins.
Jeff is currently holding up a Trash 80.
A portable Trash 80.
Which I have to be honest with you guys. I'd always like heard like what a Trash 80 is or whatever, but like I didn't know what it looked like until maybe, I don't know, like a year or two ago. And then I was like, oh, damn.
Oh, my cousin had one. Yeah.
Did all of them have integrated screens, or was that only some of them?
Like one line screen.
Yeah. No, this one's like I think a 5-line screen.
But did they all have screens?
There was like a desktop version.
Okay. So this is why I was confused, because in my mind, I'd always thought that it was like a desktop thing, right? And normal desktop computer, home computer thing. But then I saw it with the screen, and I was like, oh shit, if I'd known that it looked like that, like I would have been way more into it.
Well,
so I think that's what it was.
Since we're in it, I'll just give you the quick story of this thing. So I had posted a photo. My sons volunteered at a place here called Free Geek. And part of Free Geek is just taking apart electronics so they can recycle them. The other part is a electronics thrift store. And so last week, actually, I saw a Commodore 64 Executive, which is like you pick it up with a big handle and it's got a little integrated screen and the keyboard comes out. And they had one of the old Heathkit computers there. Anyway, so we had picked up an old like 90s PC pre-Pentium, and the boys run Doom on it and play Doom on it. And I put a picture of that on Facebook. And Eric Ringham, I knew when I worked at Minnesota Public Radio, greatest voice in radio, had worked for the Star Tribune, which is our local Minneapolis paper. And he messaged me and he's like, hey, I have a TRS 80 if you want it. And I was like, yes, I want it. And I went over to his house the next day. It's in mint condition. It still works. And it had the Star Tribune's instructions for use, which called it instructions for using the Trash 80 is what it said. And it actually was, he took it to China and he used it as a foreign correspondent. But because he could never figure out how to use the modem, he still had to call his editor and read the copy that he typed on this. And sadly, he had programmed Space Invaders into it, but it doesn't exist there anymore. So anyway, that's how I ended up with the Trash 80. It's beautiful.
Do you guys know who Charles Edge is?
Oh, no. Name only.
I met him a while back, and he contributes to like Huffington Post and he writes books. But he is basically, aside from being a computer scientist, he's a historian of computing. And that guy, you give him like a model number and he can tell you like the history and the capabilities of just about any historical machine. He's also very good looking. Oh, straight, there you go. But very good looking.
Just a thing about Huffington Post, because it's been the case for many, many years, maybe nigh on decades, that saying you write for Huffington Post is the same as saying you write for MySpace. It's like it's not a thing that was like we're picking you anymore. But that's all right. It's all right.
Yeah. Let's see. He also writes for Inc.com. That counts for something, right?
Sure. Is that a tattoo rag or?
Sure. Sure. All right. Christina, how's your mental health?
My mental health is good. I think that the new antidepressant is working. So
excellent.
Yay. Applause, everyone. So that's really, really good. So I actually spent like last week, this week it's been fine. I've been just doing work stuff. Work is starting to get hectic. But last week, I actually had like a week of like concerts that the concerts were great, but it was also one of those things where like I'm reaching the age where I go to see concerts and like I look at the crowd and I see how old the crowd is and it like makes me uncomfortable with my own mortality. So I went and so the first thing, so my friend Erin and I basically did like a week of concerts. So she lives in Raleigh. We work together. She's my GitHub work wife. I usually get married to at least one person per job, but she's my GitHub work wife. And she was in Seattle visiting some friends that she has. Yeah, I think that's you. And so we went to see, because we have similar taste in music, and so we went to see at a winery. And I'd never been to this winery before. I'd never been to this part of Washington before, Woodinville, and I've been wanting to go there. We saw Dashboard Confessional, who I've seen many, many times, and we've talked about on this pod.
Okay.
And I saw Counting Crows.
Oh, fun.
And Counting Crows is one of my favorite bands ever, and they're actually one of the best bands. Amazing band, and live they are phenomenal. Erin had never seen them live, and I told her, I was like, no, like they're one of the best bands you will ever see live. And she was like, it's kind of skeptical. And then afterwards she was like, holy shit, you were right. I was like, yeah. I know. They were amazing. They did this right after the Prepare to Feel Really Awful, the 30th anniversary of August and Everything After.
Oh, dude, everything's the 30th anniversary for me, and we're getting up on 40th with some of these albums.
But but that would like mind fucked me. And but they were amazing. They did a lot of great songs. They opened with my favorite Counting Crows song, which I was not expecting, and so that was kind of like a whole thing. And they covered Taylor Swift actually, like on their set list, which like was to me like they covered the one from Folklore, which I was not expecting at all. And I was like, okay, my two worlds are colliding here, and I don't know how I feel about this, but I love it. So we did that on Saturday. And then on Sunday, we flew to Raleigh, and I stayed with her. She was gracious enough to host me. And we saw Ben Folds on Wednesday in Raleigh. He's doing solo piano shows across the U.S. because he just released a new album. And I love Ben Folds. Love, love, love him. Nice. But he's from South Carolina. And we basically that was like the hometown show. Like we paid to do the meet and greet. We did not pay for the photo op because I'm not going to pay $75 for a photo. I already have photos of me and Ben Folds. I'm not going to do that. But I did pay $75 for the meet and greet, which had an AMA part, which was great, which was lovely. And like one of his original music teachers was there from like elementary school, as well as like a guy that he went to high school with. Like it was pretty nice. Cool. Like just in the audience. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And he was great. And then our whole thing is, so we were like, okay, we're going to go see him in Raleigh. And then we got on a plane at 5 a.m. on Thursday morning and flew to DC to see him at the Kennedy Center.
Oh, fun.
And so I spent the weekend in Washington, DC
that's
too.
Quite a week.
Yeah, it was. It was really, really fun. And, this is the sort of shit that I usually do, like when I'm feeling like me. Like I will totally just be the sort of person who's like, yeah, one of my favorite bands is playing 2 shows and they're a city apart. Let's get on an airplane and do it. Like I do that shit, right? But I haven't done that done that in a really long time. And I planned this when I wasn't feeling good. But I'm so glad I was feeling good when I did it.
That's amazing.
And then we went to a Nationals game. Saw the Braves. The Braves beat the Nats. Go Braves! It just had a really nice weekend in Washington D.C. with my friend, and I was like, I don't know, it like hit me. I was like, I feel like myself. Like I'm gonna cry because I felt like myself for the first time in a long time.
You planned this when you weren't feeling like yourself.
Did you believe you were going to do it?
Yeah, exactly. Did you plan it in the hopes that you were going to feel like yourself in time?
I think so. And if not, then it was one of those things where I was like, well, I'll do it. Right. Like this can just be one of those things that I just kind of like,
force
suck up
yourself.
And do. Right. Yeah. Right. But it wouldn't have been the same thing because live music invigorates me and sustains me in a way basically like nothing else. That's why I always go on like my concert adventures. Like people, some people spend their money on different things and I don't judge. And so I know people look at me sometimes and they think it's weird, that I'll fly to different cities frequently, to see concerts, but live music really does invigorate me. And but this, I planned this before I was feeling good, and I guess there was a hope in the back of my mind that I'd be feeling good, but I didn't I didn't appreciate how much better it was to feel good and do that, you know, and also to just, you know, be with my friend and, you know, like, and you never know. That's the thing too. You never know when you first, I guess, like travel with someone and you're with them for like a long period of time. Like, is this going to work out? Like, are we the types of friends who can travel together or not?
Yeah.
And Aaron and I definitely are, which is great. I found that out earlier this year too with my friends Catherine and Alex when we went to Disney World together. But like, you know,
Disney World. Love it.
Yeah, and like we had like, you know, we were adults at Disney, not adult Disney fans, to be clear.
Yeah, exactly. That's an important distinction.
It is an important distinction. But like when we did that, like, you know, but that's always a nice thing too, because you never know, especially like when we are adults, like when you travel with people, it's not like when you're in college and you can just kind of like go along with it. You know, if somebody's lame and you're like, okay, it's whatever. Like it sucks if you're spending like 7 days with someone who you don't really like that much. Oh my
God. No, that's not something to do.
No. So Aaron and I travel well together and which was fantastic for both of us to learn, which was great. So yeah, so that's my update. I'm feeling a lot better. I'm feeling like myself again for the first time in a really long time. So
that's
yay.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I love it so much. That's amazing.
Right.
Yeah. Brett, I know you got some business to tend to.
The raccoons. I've been promised raccoons.
Yeah. I think honestly, I want to make the raccoons a section after mental health.
Sure.
Partner. We're gonna get into the
might be
raccoons.
my favorite sentence in the history of this podcast.
The raccoons at all.
As far as mental health goes, things are actually pretty good. I had a brief manic episode a couple weeks ago for the first time. It was right after I told you guys that I hadn't had a manic episode for like 6 months.
Right.
It was
someone's listening to the podcast.
Literally the next day. I realized that I was manic again, but it only lasted about 2.5 days. And then it ended. The depression was mild and I have been stable ever since then.
Good.
In the interest of collecting data about this kind of thing, I can't remember if I had this out last time we talked or not, but I wrote a command line tool called Journal.
Yeah, we didn't talk about it, but I've been following your blog and I've been obsessed with it.
And you can, using a YAML config file, you can add questions.
You fucking man, I love
shit. I'm not following you enough
to ask yourself, and you can give yourself like numeric ratings on a question. You can give yourself text input. You can ask yourself, or you can add like weather data. And I just today added moon phase to the weather data that you can collect. So go ahead.
Pause. So I normally keep up with what you're doing. I used to look at your site every day because I wanted to see what new fucking bananas thing you were working on. But I only just logged on, having learned just now about Journal, and I already know how deep in you are because your most current post is historical weather for Journal CLI. I was like, oh fuck, I missed a lot.
Yeah, because like one of the features is if you miss a day. So like the idea was, it stores your info in a JSON structured data file that you can then use for analysis and querying. That was the important part to me.
Yep.
But it can also store markdown journal entries and it can add to day one.
Mm-hmm.
So however you want to journal. But to me, the important part was I was scoring, our couples therapist asked us to rate our own kind of bandwidth and our partner's bandwidth daily on a scale of 1 to 5. And I started doing that in day one and then realized I had no way to query or output these specific numbers. And I couldn't correlate them to any other factors. Mm-hmm. So I wrote Journal just to allow me to keep this JSON file of all of these numbers and all kinds of other peripheral data that might affect them so I could draw correlations later. So that's the primary function of Journal. Yeah. It has already led to some enlightening discoveries. I am interested to see how moon phase affects some of these scores because I'm not into astrology. I don't at all, not even a little.
It's completely fake.
But I have noticed that on full moons and the 2 days surrounding full moons, I don't sleep as well. And I don't know if that's just extra light in the room or what.
Okay,
but
here's the thing. I think that there's I'm gonna like be a hypocrite here. I think that like astrology, like the like horoscope, all that stuff is complete bunk and nonsense.
Total bullshit.
Complete bullshit. There's nothing. I mean that is fantasy on a level that like I'm not like religion. I can sort of I can understand the appeal behind. I can't even understand the appeal behind this because it's literally made up nonsense.
We
right?
agree on this.
But I think that when it comes to like the stuff that can happen with moons and the tides, I do think that can affect how you feel,
because it's legit gravitational changes.
Yes, yeah,
that could affect, I don't know, things like mood and sleep, and
absolutely.
Yep.
So I'm tracking this, and now I'm collecting this data as well. And I've been slowly writing, like, journal itself. The CLI doesn't offer any query tools. Like basically you get a JSON file that you can parse and work in whatever language you like and do whatever you want with. So I write scripts in Ruby that output different correlations, and I'd be really curious. It also, I found out there's like this data view plugin for Obsidian
that's a great plugin.
It could use YAML headers in your journal entries and output different ways to view your data. So journal now, when it outputs a markdown entry, which you can point to your Obsidian vault, it includes all of your numeric and weather data as YAML headers that you can then use Obsidian data view to map. And
because we're still in Mental Health Corner, I need you to stop saying Obsidian, because I've had to bar myself from using it because I become so obsessive in using it that I lose all of my time.
I feel like that's a major pitfall to Obsidian.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, like, I test it once in a while.
Same.
And I see all the potential.
It's awesome.
It is. It really is
awesome. I still read the change logs.
Same, I remember, but it is, and I use it, but like I have the same problem where like I could literally lose 12 hours and I'm not actually even being like Christina hyperbolic. I'm being completely serious. I could lose 12 hours of my life to configuring and dealing with all the little things that I would want. And maybe that would be a good use of 12 hours. Who's to say? but I can totally like get sucked down those rabbit holes. I completely understand.
I talked to a developer from Obsidian early on, I think maybe even before their first public release. And he said to me, I don't see this as competition for NV Ultra. However, it 100% is.
Oh, it absolutely is.
It is. And it does so much more than NV Ultra even aspires to do.
Which I think is a good thing. I think that's the one area where it's not competition, right? Like it absolutely is. And for some people, I think it will replace exactly what they would use NV Ultra for.
Yeah.
But in another sense, I think it's almost a good thing for you where you're like, okay, if you need to go beyond, I don't have to build that.
And here's the thing is both apps work with a folder full of markdown files.
Exactly.
Yes.
So you can access your Obsidian data in NV Ultra, and you can use NV Ultra for quick entry into Obsidian.
Right.
So there's some
a complementary path for sure.
Synergy. Can we say synergy?
No, definitely. Right. And look, I think that they definitely, and I think they've even admitted it, like took, things from NV Alt, right? Was definitely inspiration for it. But I think that in one case, because we've talked about this before, but they were like, oh, we don't see it as competition. It's absolutely competition. But I think they serve different purposes. And for you specifically, Brett, like I think that is actually good that there's this app that in many ways could go down all the Brett rabbit holes, but you're not the one building it. And you don't have to be in charge of it because you can just make your app your app.
You guys, stop. I opened Obsidian. It's not good. It's not good.
There is so much that if I could Fletcher, my partner on NV Ultra, is very like, you have to absolutely convince him with data that a feature is worth adding before he will consider adding it to NV Ultra.
Why it's still in beta.
It is.
I'm saying that knowing that this is not on you. I would never say that if it was strictly your situation.
But so like there are all these things that Obsidian does that I'm like, oh my God, we should totally figure out like an even better way to do this thing. And it'll just be a no-go with Fletcher because I'm not a logical person. Like I can't debate. I can't debate. If a debate is all about like logic and data, I'm kind of lost. Like I get screwed over when the conversation becomes overly technical in any kind of debate. I have some
You're a
information,
doer.
but I have an ADHD brain that doesn't retain a lot of facts and data points that I can use to prove my argument. So I get bulldozed very easily when I'm dealing with someone who is very logical. But anyway, so journal aside, mild manic episode aside, I also DJ'd at
I was going to ask you about that.
At Ed's No Name Bar. It's no longer called Ed's because Ed sold it. But back in the day, this guy named Ed Hoffman wanted to open, and originally it was supposed to be a wine bar. He was going to open a high-class wine bar, but he gave up on that and opened a dive bar. But dive bar in a hipster way.
Right.
Like a hipster bar with like the Christmas lights around the liquor selection and everything. And
dive bar parentheses aesthetic.
Yeah. And he didn't come up with a name, so it just became known as Ed's No Name Bar. He sold it. Now it's literally registered as No Name Bar.
That's nice.
And I had a friend bartending there, and I tweeted Spotify had given me this list of recommended songs, and I'm like, holy shit, I want to DJ this for a crowd, for anybody who would listen. And so I tweeted that, and Christian was like, hey, Ed's on Thursday 4 to 8. So I showed up with my iPhone and my playlist ready to go. Nobody there. And nobody was there for the first 3 hours of my set. But it was still a blast to sit at the dive bar and talk to Christian and listen to fucking old school punk rock for 3 hours. And then people finally started showing up. But it was at the point I got to about 2 hours into the playlist, and I decided to mix in something other than classic punk. And it went to like Sage Francis and Fugazi and Mudhoney and K-Flay. And it kind of like, it became a more diverse playlist at that point. And that's when everyone started showing up. So people missed out. Like the first 6 songs on the playlist are Rise Above by Black Flag, California Uberalis by the Dead Kennedys, Fuck Shit Up by Blatz, Ever Fallen in Love by the Buzzcocks, I Love Living in the City by Fear.
I love living in the city.
Yeah. And Living in Exile by Blood for Blood. And then it just goes on with that kind of theme from there. But it was so much fun just to be in a bar, even though there was nobody there. Just to be in a bar listening to it. Yeah, exactly. It reminded me so much of the bars.
You guys want to play dice in the corner? Yeah.
We'd hang out in bars in New York City, like in Queens, and we'd be in this like just shitty bar, almost nobody there, and they would have a jukebox, and we would play whatever Runaways, whatever Joan Jett, whatever NWA they had, and we would just kind of run the sound system for an almost empty bar. And it did remind me of being on tour.
Yep.
Yeah,
this is like practice, but we're in Pittsburgh.
You guys want to talk about raccoons?
Yes, let's talk about raccoons.
Please. Okay. Wait, can I ask a journal question really quick?
Yes, please.
First of all, this reminds me of Simon, what's his last name? I've talked about it before, but his data set.
Willinson.
Yeah, and his like personal life logging sort of attachment.
Yeah. Simon Willison. Yeah, he's the best.
It has that spirit, but I wanted to ask, like, so you're building this stuff in. I assume there's at least 6 or 7 more things that'll be built in the next month. And by the way, without a manic phase, nice work.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. I just wanted to point that out. But is there a way to just like say, I want to hook this API to Journal as a user, and there's like a pathway to that? Can that be a thing?
No, but that it can be a thing. That's absolutely a really good idea. Yeah.
Because I love that thing of like you're identifying all these things that you wonder maybe impact your mental health. And I can imagine then my brain racing off and being like, I'm going to go grab baseball scores.
Yeah. So
I do not watch baseball, but that's
you define a key and a question type. And a question type right now can be numeric. It can be an integer or a float. It can be text. It can be multi-line text. It can be weather. Like you have all these different types. And I could easily have a type that was API, and either through a plugin architecture or just if there was like a URL you could query.
Yeah.
And bring in like JSON or any kind of structured data, then yeah, I could add that. Yeah.
I've noticed I'm always a little off when the International Space Station passes over. That's an API.
There's only maybe 200 people using Journal right now.
201 after this podcast ends.
Or 200 who have tried it. I don't know how many kept using it. But I have yet to receive any major feature requests, just some bug reports. So I will consider that a valid feature request. Consider it on the docket.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So
raccoons.
when I was in my 20s, my ex-wife and I were driving along a road and we saw a baby raccoon, and we pulled over because it looked lost, and we had just seen a dead raccoon in the road a little bit before. So the safe assumption was that that was the mother and this young raccoon was lost. And we picked it up and we brought it home, and it had nothing in its eye sockets, just empty eye sockets, a totally blind raccoon.
Oof.
So apparently born that way. Just, it didn't look, there were no scars, just born without eyes. And we named it Charlie. A Ray Charles reference, and we cared for it for probably 3 weeks, feeding it and loving it, and it was super sweet. Like it would do its little chirping when you'd come in, and it would feel your face. And
amazing.
And it like got to know Aditi's face even better than mine, I think. And we eventually found a sanctuary in Baraboo, Wisconsin that would take him. And we went back to visit him multiple times, and he would come running up and he would feel Aditi's face and just start like chirping, like so happy to see her.
Beautiful.
And her nose ring. He loved her nose ring.
Oh God, careful.
But
yeah,
like
yonk.
So have you ever felt a raccoon's paws?
No.
They're human. They're so soft. It's like human skin, and they're very gentle with their paws, and they pat and feel and wash their hands in water. If you've ever seen that, it's adorable.
My God, no. I felt the skunk's paws once, but we can talk about that later.
But I came to love raccoons, and then when I first saw Guardians of the Galaxy, I felt a connection to Rocket.
Right.
Trash Panda.
And then I saw Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Oh, I need to see.
In which you realize that the story was never about Star-Lord. The story was Rocket's the whole time. And Rocket becomes, no spoilers. Everyone should absolutely see Guardians 3. You should probably watch all 3 in order. But Rocket's storyline, when you look at it, he goes from victim, like you get his full backstory in Guardians 3, where he is the product of experimentation and is almost like put to death because he has served his usefulness. He goes from victim to advocate to hero to leader. And you see the progression of him emotionally, and it is every time I watch Guardians 3, which is 3 times now, I sob. I cry the whole way through. There's a part where Rocket almost dies. And I know after the first time that he doesn't die. I know in my heart he's going to be okay. And it still hits me. James Gunn is a goddamn genius. And obviously he wrote this story for Rocket. Like this was Rocket's story all along. And it has like it has led to all of these deep realizations about my own trauma, about my own story. And honestly, like I rarely cry. Like I'll tear up a little for an emotional scene, but this is like I watch Guardians 3 and there are tears streaming down my face, and I have to I'm like, I'm sorry, snotting into my shirt, and it's amazing. I have you guys seen Guardians 3?
I haven't. I've wanted to. Is it on Disney Plus now?
Yeah,
okay,
it is.
Cool. All right, I'll watch it because I wanted to see it this summer and I just wasn't able to. But I like the first two, and I always kind of agree with you. I thought that Rocket was like a very underrated character, and like should have like had more. Especially after the second one, I was like, okay, this character fucking rules. Like this,
yeah.
I'm into the trash.
Well, he's got this whole like tough guy persona. He has to be like the toughest guy in the galaxy, right?
Right.
But he's just covering up his own insecurity and pain. And there's this amazing scene where I can't remember the character's name, the blue guy, Yondu or something like that, starts yelling at him about. He's like, I know who you are. I know what you are. And he starts explaining like all of these things that hit Rocket to his core. And then he's like, I know who you are because you're me. And Rocket's response is, what a pair we are. And like, it's so cutting. It's so biting. It's so good. Awesome. I'm going to link a podcast on Rocket. I can't remember the name of the podcast, but it's a filmmaker and a psychologist, and I want to say a film critic that come together to talk about Rocket's kind of trajectory through this whole thing. Anyone who is at all touched by this, whether you've seen Guardians 3 or not, go check out this podcast. It'll be in the show notes. It's a YouTube video podcast, a video cast. But it is absolutely worth seeing. Even you could watch it as a prequel to seeing Guardians 3. But yeah, so that's my raccoon thing. Oh, and Elle is knitting me a raccoon.
That's amazing.
She started this before Guardians 3 came out because she knew I loved raccoons to begin with. After we saw Guardians 3, I'm like, we are naming this stuffed animal you're making me. We're naming it Rocket.
Hell yeah.
And so I have this brand on the inside of my right forearm that is this spiral that I made with a twisted up coat hanger and a blowtorch. And it represents, for me, like serious trauma and depression and healing. Like there's like a whole story to it. And she's going to tattoo, and we've talked about like doing couples tattoos, like her taking on this brand as well in the form of a white tattoo, but she's going to put this onto my stuffed raccoon.
Nice.
And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing.
That's amazing.
That will mean so much to me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Also, if I'm not mistaken, the picture of you and the blind raccoon is going to be the show art, right?
It will, yes.
Yeah. I love that photo so much. When I showed my kids, they're like, is this the same one that had an arrow through its head? I was like, I don't think so.
That did happen, though.
I know.
Or was that a goose?
No, you... First of all, thank you for that. Secondly, I don't think a goose could have an arrow through its head and be walking around. It was a raccoon. Yeah. You told me the story. You and Aditi actually both told me the story the one time I met her and the first time I met you.
Yeah.
That you looked out your deck sliding glass door and there was a raccoon with an arrow through its head walking around.
Yeah. That sounds very true. My memory is so foggy, but speaking of pets though, speaking of rescued animals, so I'm sorry, I'm taking up a lot of time here, but
that's all right.
We got a cat from the Humane Society. We went in and we looked, and there were a couple of long hairs that we really wanted, but they were like, there's 4 people on the waiting list for these already. So we brought home a cat whose name at the Humane Society was Connie, short for Concrete, having something to do with her origin story, but she had been fostered and returned because she was too underfoot She was too loving, and they considered her dangerous to have around the house. So we named her Hazy, short for safety hazard. And we spent a week with her, but she proved to be an exceptional escape artist. We just spent thousands of dollars getting new windows in her home, and they have these screens that you can squeeze and pop out. And she figured out how to pop the screens out. And I came home from getting groceries, and there was a screen lying in our front lawn. And sure enough, she was gone. She didn't go far. I sat down on the front porch. She came up. She was wrapping herself around my legs within minutes. So we thought, okay, from now on, we can only open the windows from the top because both sides slide, right? So we open it from the top. Next day, we're watching a YouTube video in the living room, and we look out the front window in the rain, and there's a very wet Hazy looking in at us. And that's untenable to never be able to open windows in our house again.
Right.
So we took her back, and when we did, they're like, so you know those 4 people waiting for these long hair cats? They all bowed out.
Oh my God.
And we're like, perfect. So right now, up in my room, as like the quarantine room, I have 2 long-haired cats. We're debating on names. We have considered Data and Lore. We have considered Wilhelm and Jacob, the Grimm brothers. We have considered Niles and Fraser. But right now, we're kind of leaning towards Morris and Dick, or Richard. And because like I had an Uncle Morris, she had an Uncle Dick, and we're going to name them after our uncles. The personalities fit pretty well. One of them is super gregarious and like just out there loving you. And the other one hid under my bed for the first 24 hours he was home, and now is like coming out and it's like being a little more social. But I love these cats. I really think they're going to work out. Still have to introduce them to Bod, but I'm excited.
That's great.
That's awesome.
I'll shut up now. I have talked for like 10 minutes straight. You guys.
No, I got nothing. I mean, we're also close to Grapptitude time.
I was going to say it's almost Grapptitude time. Before we get into Grapptitude, I want to do Grapptibitch and complain a little bit about some of the things with macOS Sonoma, which I have to admit, I didn't test a lot of the things in the beta. Like I had it on like an external drive. I did it in VMs. I didn't do it on like, bare metal or whatever, because I'm not about that life anymore. I don't have to be. So I'm not. So fuck that. But okay, first of all, the default behavior of when you click on the desktop. What the fuck, guys? What the fuck?
You don't like that? I love that.
I like it.
That makes
but I
me so happy. Okay, it makes me happy because I added like 10 widgets to my desktop, and now I don't have to use the mouse gesture. I can just click anywhere on the desktop and see my widgets. That works for me.
Which is fine, but like, okay, but didn't there used to be a way, like you could do basically 2 things. Like one, which is like I click on my desktop and keep my windows there, fine. And then there was also an option where you could just see your desktop the way with all the widgets.
Yeah,
everything moved away.
Like a 5-finger swipe out on a trackpad would move all your windows. Yeah.
Right. And that's gone now. I don't have that option anymore. And that fucking
that's
pisses me off.
Like you can maybe Better Touch Tool gives it to me, but maybe you can still trigger it.
I mean, I'm going to have to set up Better Touch Tool to do that though, on like across a bunch of devices. So that pisses me off. Like, don't fuck with my default behavior like that. Like, that's number one. Don't move my cheese. I'm becoming that person. But the real thing that I want to rant about is, okay, it is the year of our Lord 2023. It is almost 2024. What the fuck, Apple Music for Mac? What the fuck? Like, actually,
I haven't used it. Is it bad? What happened?
It's still awful. That's the point. Like, Spotify is what I use on desktop. I cannot open the music. I know they fucked it up.
Spotify on Sonoma.
Yes.
It glitches every 15 seconds or so. My sound cuts out ever since I installed Sonoma. Oh, it's been bad.
Okay, mine doesn't do that. So, but they did update the interface in a way that I don't like. But that's beside the point. It's still better than the shit show that is Apple Music for the Mac, where I don't know, guys. Like, what the fuck? Like, genuinely, I know that you had to kill iTunes or whatever, but like, did you? Because honestly, it's this shitty app that runs poorly. Yeah. I don't know what it is supposed to be. And here's the worst part: and when I bitch about this on Mastodon, or Twitter or whatever, but usually on Mastodon because that's where I mostly do my tech bitching because Twitter is whatever.
Well, actually, it's called X now.
Oh, fuck you! I'm never going to. I'm gonna. I'm that should be like the preview for our episode. That should be the teaser. Oh fuck! Actually, it's called Mastodon.
Oh, fuck
it's
you.
called X now. It's called Mastodon. Oh, or it's called X now. Fuck you. Yeah. No. Fuck off for real. I'm never calling it X. Fuck off. No, but like when I bitch about this on Mastodon, I'll inevitably get people who will be like, "Oh, well, just use the web app." Okay, first of all, fuck you too, because that's
for Apple Music.
Yes.
Oh God, no.
Correct.
Weird. Yeah, that's
correct.
a weird.
Correct.
Oh.
That's a weird being so far up Apple's asshole, right? Honestly, but B, I would, except the whole reason that I use Apple Music, the entire reason why I like it over Spotify, the only thing that it has over Spotify for me is that it has the decades, and it is plural now, of music that I've purchased from iTunes in the cloud. Not all of which, in fact, a fairly substantial amount is not available on Apple Music. And it has the decades, again, plural, of music that I've uploaded over the years that I've gotten from other places that might not be available on Apple Music. So that's the whole reason that I prefer it, because it has my cloud. It's basically a cloud version of like my local library that I used to have to carry around all the time, as well as the entire catalog of songs. Otherwise, I would just say, fuck you, I'm using Spotify. They have better playlists anyway. But I can't because I like having some of my specific, versions and other things. So I primarily use Apple Music on my phone and my iPad for mobile, and then I use Spotify on the desktop. I would like to use Apple Music on the desktop, but I can't because it's a piece of shit, because it consumes so much memory and it's awful. And if I open it, it does all kinds of things, and it's just a bad experience. And so, but here's the kicker. The web version of Apple Music does not let you listen to any of your local library uploads. It doesn't let you listen to any of your iCloud uploads. So it ruins that for you.
Which you can do on your phone.
Yes. And on your Mac, but not on the web service.
No, I'm saying you could use that everywhere else. It's not
there. Exactly. So fuck you, Apple, for ruining, like, you had the best music app thing in the world and you threw it away more than a decade ago when you ruined iTunes, but like, started with that goddamn icon, but like,
but they're making so much more money on it now.
I know, and I don't care. And like, can you dedicate some of your resources to making the fucking desktop app work so that I don't have to live in this weird two universes? I'm sorry, that was a really long rant, and that was my rant.
No, that's cool. I actually don't use Apple Music on the desktop, so I haven't. It frustrated me a long time ago, and Spotify was just better.
Yeah.
I really appreciate Spotify. However, I cannot use Spotify on my Mac right now. Every 15 seconds or so, it cuts out for maybe 2 seconds and then comes back, not pause, like it'll skip 2 seconds of whatever I'm listening to.
Oh God, that's awful.
And so it's unusable. It's absolutely pointless for me. So I have just been listening on my phone and pushing it to my speakers in my office through my Echo, weirdly enough, completely outside of Apple's ecosystem.
Well, I mean, but fuck them, man.
It works, and I do love Spotify. I really do.
I do too. I think their playlists are so much better. It's like scary how much better they are. Like it's like scary.
Apple, the last couple times I've loaded Apple Music, I haven't even seen the For You playlists. I don't even know if they're doing that.
No, they are. In fact, they're making it better. They're supposed to introduce like a For You station, and they're trying to do other stuff, but they're so far behind what Spotify does for Spotify Discover. But also Spotify will take, like, they'll customize playlists based on your listening thing, where they'll be like, okay, this is a playlist for this type of genre or this thing.
Yeah, they'll give you six a day. Of different genres.
But even beyond that, they'll be like, this is a playlist on this thing, but for Christina Warren. So it'll be like their own kind of, so like a cross between curated and algorithmically determined based on your history, which is fucking brilliant. Like it's, and I discover so much. Good. I discover so much new music from Spotify that I never discover new music on Apple Music ever.
Yep.
Oh man, Spotify's incredible for that. Incredible.
All of the bands I have learned about in the last year have been because they've created a playlist for me that is about half songs that I have loved in the past or songs that I listen to frequently, and then half songs I've never heard but make sense based on my listening history.
100%.
And I have found like so many new bands. All the new bands I listen to are because Spotify suggested them.
Same. I listen to all these like 20-year-olds who are making, like indie lo-fi throwback to like, late 90s, early 2000s music. And I'm like, God, I don't even want to contemplate the fact that this is throwback for you, but I love it so much. And I'm like, and I've learned about it on Spotify, like Apple Music, you tried, and I pay you still. So fuck you.
Yeah,
but like,
me too.
I
do the Apple one.
Same. But I still think I pay regardless. But like, because of, again, I like having my local music stuff, but the Spotify stuff is just so much better. It really is.
All right, we should do Grapptitude because I have yet another thing to interject in my Grapptitude.
Okay.
But I'll keep it short. I promise I'll keep it short. But Christina, I think you have one to go start with.
I do. Okay, so my pick this week is called Interlink. And Interlink is an app from the creator of Pens, which is a not cross-platform, but it's a Mac and an iOS penboard app.
Yeah, I love
penboard,
Pens.
meaning penboard.in. Here's the thing with Penboard. Brett and I have both used it for forever. I don't know if you've ever used it, Jeff. But
sure.
Okay, so we all three of us have used this for forever. I think we've all noticed that it has basically been in maintenance mode for a while. In fact, I think that Massage like took like a year plus off and like didn't do anything with it. I don't even know if he was responding to user requests, because there used to be like a monthly thread on Hacker News like, is Penboard still alive?
Yeah.
Right.
And so he's ostensibly, I think, back, but he's not putting any effort into it. And that concerns me a little bit as someone who has like tens of thousands of links in this app, or, in this service. So it also, I think, concerns the creator of Pens. So he's created this app called Interlink, which is basically it's a link. It's basically Pens, but with his own kind of back end to address Pens' shortcomings, mostly due to API limitations. And I'm reading this from his from the Mastodon account for the app. It says, fast forward to 2023, I'm building a new link organizer to address Pens' shortcomings, mostly due to API limitation, limited syncing capabilities, lack of bulk link management, batch processing, among others. While I'm aware of similar offerings, bookmarking is so last century. I want something mobile first instead of web first. This becomes Interlink's roadmap. And then he kind of has a whole thread on that. It's only available in test flight right now for Mac and iOS, but it's really good. It will import all of your links from Pens. There's a bookmarklet that'll work on browsers, as well as a browser extension for Chrome browsers. And if you go to interlinkhq.com, there are some docs. Like I will be happy to pay whatever he needs to charge for this once it's ready. And I'm in. Like this is really great because it's basically Pens but better, and with somebody who seems mostly committed, I think, to actually keeping this up and running.
Yeah,
Nice.
so that would be my concern. Is Pinboard did this interesting payment plan where everyone who signed up paid like a penny more than the person who signed up before them.
Yeah.
So signing up now costs you like $15 a month? I don't even know.
I'm not sure about that, but what it was is that you used to be able to buy like a lifetime plan. And I think you and I were definitely on that. I eventually upgraded to being able to pay, like I think to make things like I pay like a certain amount for archiving.
Yeah.
Every year.
$25 a year.
Or $33 a year or something like that. And I do that just because I get so much use out of the service. And I even asked him, I was like, look, how will you get more money if I opt into paying you, for an account that I have, or by, doing the archiving? He was like, what you're doing is fine. So, but that was a couple of years ago. I don't know what the situation is now.
So longevity is my concern.
Agreed.
As you mentioned, we both have thousands of links in these services. Pinboard imported my Delicious links.
Yep.
And
same.
Pinboard's API is basically a duplicate of Delicious.
Mm-hmm.
That was his goal, was just parity with Delicious, and then he stopped. Like it didn't need much more than that, and it works fine for me. If I were going to switch to a new service, I would need to know that they were dedicated to longevity, and I would need an API similar to Delicious or Pinboard to access my bookmarks.
Yeah,
because I do a lot of command line work with my Pinboard bookmarks, and it works. Like he can take a year off. I don't care. Like it works, and everything feels safe.
Yeah, I think the problem that I had, like, there was a certain amount of stuff where people's like backups were not working, and so that was sort of the problem, right? So
like exports or
yeah, like
okay.
so that was sort of the problem. So I can understand that. So anyway.
Yeah. Cool. No, I'm excited that there's, some forward movement in this space because yeah, nobody should be using browser bookmarks anymore. They're unmanageable. There's a limit to how useful they can be once you have more than, say, 100.
Totally.
And for like read later applications, they're pointless. Like just a waste of
really 100%. And I like Matter a lot, and I like what they're doing a ton. But I just these things, like, they accomplish different things for me. So like I can siphon some things that I use in Pinboard or Interlink into Matter, but there are some things that are just different, right? And Obsidian is the same way. Like I can have my links, different stuff that I want, but like I don't know, I use Pinboard so much, and so anyway, Interlink is my pick. I'm still using Pinboard. I'm still using both because I'm whatever. I'm never going to stop using Pinboard. But like but I'm excited about Interlink, and he updated the test flight just the other day, and that's why I thought of this. And so cool. I hope that he continues like working on it, because I really like pens, and he updated pens as well. But like I if he's getting frustrated with limitations of the API and whatnot, like that says something. And so I'm glad that he's scratching his own itch, and I hope that this can be something that can be sustainable.
I'm still using Spillo, even though it is not terribly compatible with more modern operating systems. Pins is good. Spillo offers a more newsreader like interface that I love. But anyway, I'll add Spillo and Pins to this show notes. Jeff, what do you got?
I'll be brief because I've already mentioned it, but I'm actually like in a phase of not trying new apps too much because of how fiddly I can get, and I've had so many deadlines. But I've had to build decks for client work and client presentations over the last couple of weeks, and deck set. I know it's not the only thing it does this, but it allows you to create a deck from a markdown file, and my ability to create an effective and cohesive slide deck that does not have me working on stupid formatting is incredible. I also there's something I've never said about what I love about it, which is that I'm now working with a client, and they're like a large organization, and a lot of their information is stored in PowerPoints. Yep. And that is like the craziest way to write your information, because it's not even a creative constraint, right? You're constrained by when the font gets so small that you can't use it anymore in a slide, right? Or like you're constrained by the time that you waste trying to make that diagram that nobody understands anyhow. And what I love about writing a deck in Markdown is that I can write without worrying about does it fit on the slide, and I can break up the slides later. And it's made me such a more effective sort of like not just deck creator, but like facilitator with decks. I hate using decks. I hate them. But I'm so glad for deck set, and obviously by extension for plain text and Markdown in general.
Yeah. And I'll mention once again, Dexet is great, but I'll also mention, because I mentioned this a few Grapptitudes ago, IA Presenter rather, which is new and does a similar thing from the people behind IA Writer. Is fantastic. It's really, really good.
I don't know about IA Presenter, but I love that Dexet makes it easy to add builds, so you can have like line by line bullet lists that come up.
I still never use that. I'm in too much of a hurry, because here's how I create decks. I don't know how it works, but I always finish my deck 2 seconds before I log on to the Zoom.
Sure.
And so that's about when I want to do that build.
I went to Sal Segoyan's Command D conference a few years back. And I wasn't on the speaker list, but then Andy Anako canceled. He got sick and he canceled, and they came to me and they're like, hey, can you do the keynote presentation for this? And I was like, shit, yeah, okay. So I sat down with DeckSet and wrote out an entire presentation in Markdown about OSA script, the command line Apple script utility. And
nice.
And I output a deck that I was able to use on stage. And yeah, DeckSet has saved my ass multiple times.
That's great. And IA Presenter looks really cool, by the way. I'm going to download it and just peek at it.
Yeah, you should. It's really, really good. And obviously the people behind it make really great apps.
I don't know how actively DeckSet is developed anymore.
I don't think it is. There's not really a community around it.
There's not. This is why I got into IA Presenter. And you might have been gone for that week, Jeff, when I talked about this one. But yeah, this is one of the ones that I've started using it because, I mean, I work at one. GitHub is not huge on like storing things in presentations, but I have to give a number of presentations and whatnot, and it's very nice when I can build them out in Markdown.
Yeah.
And then if I have to go back and format it into something else, I can. But it's really nice to just be able to do it that way.
That's awesome. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Speaking of Markdown, my pick for the week is NotePlan. Have you guys ever used NotePlan?
NotePlan. I just started using it again. I do that every once in a while.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
I had let it go for a few years and then was talking to the developer and got myself ushered into a free license and started making more use of it. But
it's on SetApp too.
Yeah. Is it really?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see it right now.
I could have been using it this whole time and I didn't know it.
I haven't used this in a long time, but I'm into this.
I have to update a certain YAML file now.
Also allows you to just work out of a file of Markdown, like a folder of Markdown.
So like the idea behind NotePlan is you store daily notes and they can contain to-do items. And it has an interface. If you start typing a date, it'll pop up a little date picker for you. And you can schedule due dates and defer dates and keep everything in plain text. But with like project management capabilities. So you can see all of your upcoming to-dos, all of your to-dos for the day, and you can create checklists just using real simple Markdown syntax and organize it all in one place. And it is all stored as plain text that you can open and edit in other applications. And it's a very impressive, like it's just super elegant for as kind of complex as the idea is. It makes everything super easy. Really enjoy it.
I love the idea of sort of the day files. So you open up a day file, and if you create a to-do list in there, it's really easy to actually have it moved to the next day.
Yeah.
And I actually use it, and I don't ever fall into a sustained pattern with NotePlan, but it does so much that I need. The thing that I always feel like it has the most potential is because it's integrated with your calendar, I can go through the week and I can just I can kind of use a template to create meeting notes for all the different meetings that are going to happen that week. It's going to live in that day. So I won't see it until I get to that day. And then I can also kind of create prep stuff where it's like, okay, I have this meeting on Thursday. Here's what I need to add to my prep for now, whatever. I've never been able to really truly integrate it into my workflow, but like that just seems like something that should be amazing for me.
Just the idea that you're mixing notes with to-do items. Like you can use something like Things or OmniFocus, and they focus on to-dos, which you can add notes, but Note Plan kind of reverses it, where you're writing notes, you're writing journals and notes and incorporating to-dos into the notes instead of vice versa.
Right.
Which is once you get into it, it's actually a really fluid way to kind of document and plan. I really appreciate it. It's a good app.
Yeah. It's awesome.
That's great. I like that. I tend to do that myself, and so it's funny that I think I've used Note Plan before. Maybe I haven't, but now I'm definitely going to be using it because this totally just fits my mind model.
So
this is something that's very actively developed.
Yes.
Oh,
speaking of Note Plan, just a heads up. I am offering giveaways right now on brettterpstra.com. Every Monday, I'm giving away a different app. Note Plan is coming up. Just to give you a taste, upcoming apps include Timing, Hookmark, Text Expander, Scrivener, Hazel, Note Plan, Default Folder X, Towers, Solver, Spam Sieve, App Tamer, Kaleidoscope, Curio, Keyboard Maestro, Bartender, Mars Edit, Fast Scripts, Task Paper, OmniFocus, Black Ink, Things for Mac, Bike, FlexiBits Premium, which gets you access to Fantastical and scheduling and Card Hop, Eagle Filer, Unite 5, OmniGraffle, BB Edit, OmniPlan, and Drop.
Everything must go. Everything must go.
Dude, this is like all my favorite apps. This is like a Grapptitude smorgasbord. Like shit.
Yeah. So all of these will have free licenses offered to random drawing winners over. Like I have them. They're spread out through April now. So check brettterpstra.com every Monday. Subscribe to the RSS feed. If you get on the mailing list, you'll get notifications every week about what's being given away. My mailing list has increased by 400 people since I started this series, so I'm pretty psyched about it.
That's awesome.
Every developer I talk to is like, "Oh yeah, cut me in. I'm 100% in." I have not had a single rejection yet, and every time I think of an app, I'll like email the dev, and they'll be like, "Yep, cut me in for 5-10 licenses." Omni was like, "Yeah, we'll give you three pro licenses for every app we have." Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So keep track of that.
That's great.
All right. I feel like we're at hour 11.
Yeah, I think we're good.
And honestly, 0 edits.
No, I can't. Yeah. It's great.
That's great.
Hell yeah.
All right. So thanks everyone for listening to this unedited episode of Overtired. You guys get some sleep.
Get some sleep.
Get some sleep.
The system is going down now.
Hey there, good people. Before you go, we have a bunch of new places where you can interact with us. Please check out our Instagram feed, our YouTube channel, Twitter, of course, and sign up for the Overtired newsletter, which will sort of pick up where the show leaves off, with expanded show notes, a little bit of what the three of us get up to between episodes, and let's face it, there'll be some musings. How can you resist musings? You'll find details for all the ways to interact with us in the show notes and at overtired.com. And thank you, as always, for listening.